Hey everyone.
Hello, hello.
Has anybody played anything fun and interesting over the weekend?
Oh, I'm currently playing BDO, mostly, if anything.
Yeah, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima lately. Not on the Web3, but weekends are nice. Play some relaxing time.
I got a Steam Deck recently, so I've been playing some Slay the Spire on that, which has been really fun and super easy to get into and get out of.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one, definitely. Yeah, very nice
great.
game loop. Very nice game loop there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, extremely easy
I've got
to
two
get
young
into.
kids, so
Yeah, I gotcha.
I've got two young kids, so my schedule is often difficult. So if I can hop on and off in like 5 minutes, that makes it much more tenable for me to get a little gaming time in.
Totally. Yeah.
That has been a trend, right? Like, there's a lot of games with like hyper short game session time, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It's interesting. It's like you can play like a full game in between you doing other things in your day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all here. We just need Johnny to accept the speaker role, and we can get started. While that's happening, I can go through kind of the intros and some of the official things. There we're all here. So yeah, I'll go through some of the official things that I need to get us started. And then we can kick off the conversation. So my name's Ilya. I'm one of the co-founders and partners at Sanctor Capital, and the host of Waypoint Web3. Waypoint Web3 is co-produced by Sanctor Capital and United Gamers. It's kind of a safe space for everybody to talk about all things Web3 gaming. There's a lot of kind of evolutionary things happening. Some would say revolutionary things happening in the gaming space around the Web3 stack, and I think it's important that people get together and discuss and kind of learn and have a place to share their ideas. So that's kind of the thought behind Waypoint Web3. Before we go further, I do have to say that nothing you hear here is financial legal advice. All of the opinions are my own. You may hear names of assets and/or companies that we either have invested in, have positions in, or may hold positions in the future. And full disclosure, we have back United Gamers. I think that covers everything. This is a recorded space, so you will be able to hear the recording after the fact, and you can also check out past episodes of Waypoint Web3. There's been some great speakers in the past as well, but we have awesome speakers for you today as well. So to get us started, I'll just go around and ask everybody to introduce themselves. I'll call on you to start, and then if you could say a few words about how who you are, how you got into the space, and what you're doing there now, that would be great. I think first on my screen is Stephen from Decimated.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Stephen. I'm the CEO and creative director of Fracture Labs, which is the game development studio that's working on Decimated in Unreal Engine 5. We're a 50-strong team working on this project. We've been in development since 2018, but the first few years of development were really kind of just bootstrapping a startup and prototyping. But now we've scaled up the team to work on fully immersive open world survival sandbox with virtual apartments and vehicles and weapons that the players can buy and customize.
Awesome, thank you. Next up on my screen is Braxton from Puzzle.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Braxton Bragg. I'm head of product at Endless AI, and our primary project right now is called Fuzzle. It's an interactive entertainment app, and basically you interact with your NFT in the app. It's a unique alien creature, and it's powered by conversational AI using OpenAI's GPT-3 engine. We are also working on a suite of tools that will empower other projects to build their own AI characters.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, Johnny from Crossverse.
Yes. Hey, I'm Johnny, CEO of Crossverse. So Crossverse is we doing the cross metaverse gameplay, and basically we'll explain it in the short. Like, we are the search engine for the metaverse. This is the way we use NPC for players to direct them in a specific location. So we're starting with Decentraland because in our version of NPC, it's the most advanced metaverse that we can integrate with, and that's what we do in managing traffic for the metaverses.
Awesome. Thank you. Derek from Elderun.
Hey guys, I'm Doruk from the Elderun team, business development specialist. Elderun is a GameFi project running on multiple chains. Right now it's Avalanche and Polygon and running on Digart client basically, which has its own NFT marketplace. And Elderun is basically an RPG game that set in a medieval fantasy RPG elements. You can basically just play it like any RPG game that you would play in Web2 space, and just have your items basically in NFT forms, and just basically trade them in Digart NFT market.
Awesome. And last but not least, Tomas from Alteration.
Hello, my name is Tomáš Pšenička. I am the CEO and lead designer on Alteration. Alteration is an MMORPG that focuses on discovery. It's also procedurally generated, and it's populated by intelligent NPCs that can not only converse using GPT-3, but can also make their own decisions and see the world around them, have knowledge about them, and are kind of like self-aware of the environment.
Awesome. So thank you, speakers, for introducing yourself. As you can see from the title of today's talk, we're going to be talking about NPCs in Web3 games. Basically, the way I want to run this is I'll throw out kind of a question or a topic, and anybody and everybody can kind of jump in with their thoughts. No need to raise your hand or wait for me. If we go quiet for too long, I will pick on somebody to share their thoughts, but hopefully we'll get kind of a nice smooth rhythm going. To start, it probably makes sense to discuss what NPCs are and why they're important at all. What makes NPCs important, and why game developers focus time and energy to make them kind of richer and more intelligent in the first place.
I think I'll start there. Obviously, if you have an open world game that doesn't have any NPCs in it whatsoever, then it's going to be quite an empty experience if you're just relying on other players to populate the servers. So initially, like NPCs are often an area of focus for players to engage in combat, and also to make the game a bit more exciting. You're going to get attacked randomly by NPCs, which you can also attack and kill, and then you can claim loot from the NPCs that you kill. But of course, in open world games like Grand Theft Auto or Cyberpunk, you've got NPCs that have got a certain level of intelligence that will kind of give a bit more realism and believability to the world. And of course, a lot of those NPCs you can speak to and interact with. You could maybe obtain missions from them, or you could rob them, or you could kill them, or capture, whatever you want to do. Depends on the type of game that you're playing. So I think that AI and NPCs in games are really just to make the games a lot more immersive and more interesting for the players.
Yeah, and I'll just add on, I think to the extent that gaming is a form of escapism or trying to put yourself in a different reality that's maybe different from your own for a little bit more variety in your life, and a way to have fun, I think that they can really help with immersion and mentally putting yourself in that space. And moreover, I'd say certainly very important for single player experiences in most cases, but even in a multiplayer world, NPCs can serve as vehicles for structure and storytelling for which you can't necessarily count on other players.
All right. Yes. You guys have said everything that I wanted to say, but I would like just to add that the old games, how they have managed the NPCs, it was like a very boring experience, right? So I think that what everybody is trying to do here is to create like more immersion, to create like that sense of belonging oneself into the actual world, and that his decisions and that the conversation and the things that they do in the world actually do matter, right? That they have consequences and that they can use the NPCs to their advantage, and sometimes the NPCs can even be for their disadvantage, or how to say it. It's like if you piss them off, they'll not communicate with you properly, for example. So a more believable world, yeah.
I believe that the NPC is the one of the kind of creature that can be your friend in the virtual world. So this is exactly what we do in our scenario. The metaverse is metaverse is huge, or the metaverse is itself. So you can have your friend, a digital friend that you can go and interact around. And if we take the first version, like a Tamagotchi, how people get addicted to it, now it's going to evolve into the the more productive AI level. So how it's going to look. So I believe it's more like a friendship, a digital friendship that we can form.
I love that we touched on so many different things that I want to follow up on. I want to kind of start with the immersive component. That's the factor of immersion is one of the things that makes games addicting and exciting. I think somebody mentioned escapism is kind of one of the catalysts for why we want to play games. How much of that is dependent on NPCs? I think how much we talk about when we look at games, and I think in the context of Web3 especially, how visually believable a game is. But do actions of NPCs kind of benefit or harm that overall believability, and how does that work? What do you think about when you're designing NPCs, and what do you think gamers react to?
So recently I've been playing Stray. You know that game Stray, where you play a cat and you go through this cyberpunk world? And in that game, there's a certain point, no, don't want to have any spoilers or anything like that, but there's a certain point in the game where you activate this little flying robot, which acts as your companion. Now, this is obviously an NPC that helps you to progress through the game. It will give you visual references on how to solve puzzles. It will give you clues, and it will also give you leads on which direction you need to go in order to speak to other NPCs in order to unlock next levels of the story. I think that even a game that looks as beautiful as Stray, if it didn't have the AI and the NPCs in the game, it would feel like a very empty experience. It might just look very nice, but it would essentially become a walking simulator, because you'd just be walking through the environment and looking at all the nice areas. But the fact that the game is split up into different chapters, where you're speaking to all the different NPCs and helping them solve their problems in order to get to the next level of the game, is what really makes it a really kind of compelling experience to play. And for you feel like you're getting to know the characters. They've all got names, they've all got a backstory, they've all got a purpose, and in a lot of cases you're the one that triggers the purpose that they have inside the game by interacting with them. You bring them an item, they say, thanks, I've been looking for this for ages, and then they can go and unlock a door that will get you to the next area. So I definitely think that it's a really, really important aspect to have in certain games. And for example, in our game, although Decimated is a multiplayer driven game, there will be NPCs in the game that you can interact with in order to get missions and unlock certain areas of the map and things like that. So I definitely think that it's a really, really important aspect of AAA game production.
Yeah, that's good thing. Good thing that you are saying these things, because we have been saying this for quite some time. And then there's the other thing, which is emotions. We believe that the NPCs should have emotions also. And as you speak to them in our game, they either kind of like you or dislike you, but they have a wide range of emotions that they can also display on the screen. and not only through the text, but through their actions. Which means that when you get them to a certain emotional level, they are bound to do some things more than others. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say, is that the emotional level is also very important for us. And then the logical decisions that they make. For example, they have a knowledge of things in the world, and they have specific needs that they need to fulfill. We understand it. The world, could be understood as a set of needs and as a set of knowledge. And for every need, you have a knowledge of an item that you can use, for example, or it also can be knowledge of situations, specific situations in the world.
Yeah, I think NPCs acts differently in different types of games. So for like Stray was a good example. Stray is mostly a story-driven game that you experience through your main character as a cat, and all these NPCs are a big part of the story that helps you through the game to help you explore the world and experience a much more immersive world around the overall game environment. When it comes to multiplayer games, I think they act as differently, because for multiplayer games, usually world is much bigger and much more immersive. So players need to find their way around the game environment and the game world, even if it's a sandbox game or an open world game. You will need some guidance and some help to tune up your game, basically. So NPCs will set the tone of your game by their interactions with you, and your interactions with overall world environment and with the NPCs. So that helps you find your way and makes a statement about your game, what's that game is about, until you feel much more free about exploring the world on your own. Until that point, NPCs are much more important part of the games, in my opinion.
I want to follow up on something Steven said. NPCs having a purpose, and I think this is kind of a good place to insert the concept of AI. In the older games, there was a very set defined purpose and a very set defined way for how NPCs interacted with player characters. As AI, gets smarter and smarter, does that increase the scope of purpose for an NPC character? As the character becomes smarter, and are they able to not just follow a set amount of directions, but actually learn as the game progresses and kind of form, you could say, their own opinions, their own emotions. I mean, we can kind of project where AI is going. Does that increase their scope, and what is their purpose then in that new kind of more intelligent environment?
Well, I personally think that no matter how intelligent or complex AI systems get in video games, they're still going to have to follow rules so that they don't, stray off and stop doing what they're actually supposed to do. For example, if you go into a shipping container area and there's artificial intelligence or robots that are kind of moving items from one point of that area to another, if they have any other types of ability to learn about the environment that they're in, they might decide to stop doing that and then just wander off out into some other area, which would then, they would stop actually serving the purpose that they've been given inside the game. So, yeah, I think that while the AI systems might be developed more in a way to understand how the player is interacting with them to be able to respond better, I don't think that it's necessarily going to be the AI are going to be so intelligent that they're going to start, a revolt inside the game world or something like this. I don't know.
Yeah, I know where you are going with this. That's very true, actually. And we have been looking from the start how to constrain the AI, because it's by nature GPT-3 and all these other GPT systems are very non-deterministic, right? So we were looking at ways how to constrain them and keep them in line to what we want them to actually say. So we have done that. But at the same time, we also believe that we should embrace the AI, by which I mean that the neural network can sometimes make very fun decisions towards the gameplay, and because Alteration itself is kind of like a sandbox. Also, we kind of like think that part of the story should be driven, but at the same time, the filler NPCs and many other things in the game could and should be doing everything by their own free will. Walking around the city, asking people for something, asking the adventurer for something, and then even playing out their different relationships that they have with each other and with the player. So, yeah, that's my thinking.
I just wanted to add, by the way, that I think that a lot of the developments in artificial intelligence in video games is more about situational awareness and how to respond to the player, and like I mentioned before, how the player interacts with the world and the NPCs. So, for example, if you're playing a game like Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto, for example, the NPCs and the AI doesn't respond hostile unless you're hostile towards them. So I think that all the different types of circumstances that you get in these open world games, Rockstar have actually recently patented their AI system, because it's like a really, really advanced, detailed way for the AI to interact with the environment and interact with the player. So yeah, it's really all about situational awareness. It's not about giving the AI the intelligence to be able to understand the environment more than it has to in order to serve the function that it does inside the game.
I'll just add quickly, I think one of the really interesting things that we're working on and will become increasingly possible for lots of projects to do is situational awareness, even of things like what the player character is wearing, or maybe beyond sort of what we have now, kind of what the player has done either through their own actions elsewhere or even in conversations with that NPC in somewhat of an unstructured format. And I think that's so exciting, and also can just add a lot to that feeling of immersion, because you feel like that relationship is so much stronger. It's not pre-scripted or pre-planned. The AI is coming up with it on the spot as that interaction is happening, and based on the context of what else is happening in that world.
Yeah, and there's situations like in games like Skyrim and Fallout, for example. If you arrive at a new village and you start speaking to the NPCs, but you've already got a bad reputation, a negative karma reputation, then those NPCs will by default react to you in a negative way because they've already heard about you. But of course, that's just like a field in the back end player data that you've
Yep.
created, right? So the AI responds in that way. I guess it is all scripted. But I think a lot of this is really a lot of the developer content, but they tell the AI to respond in a certain way depending on the player's play style.
Yeah, those games are brilliant too, right? Like I think the Elder Scrolls games and probably the Dragon Age and Mass Effect games really, in many of our minds, have created the archetype for what NPCs should be for the technology we have today. But
exactly,
our job as developers is to push that forward even further.
Exactly. How cool would it be if you, for example, in Skyrim, you kill the dragon, right? So you kill the dragon, and the only thing that you get is basically one line from an NPC in the world. But they have no respect for you. You can't tell them anything. You can't order them to do anything, etc., etc. One other thing that we are working on in the game, and what we think is could be beneficial to gameplay, is being able to control multiple NPCs at the same time. Which means that you'll be standing in front of a crowd and addressing them with things that you want them to do. And it's one of the things that I think that any player is kind of like imagining, that he conquers this world, and then he has got all these people around him listening to him, and he's telling them what they should be doing. And so that's that's another thing that would be cool. And the other thing that is I think important in conversations is that sometimes the conversation is not driven just by yourself, right? You come to an NPC, and if he, for example, he's pissed on you, or if you are in some area where you shouldn't be, he shouldn't sometimes maybe just directly attack you, but he might come and question you for things like, what are you doing there? And at the same time, when you piss him off in the discussion, he should be able to drive the conversation forward and kind of like pushing you towards giving him an answer. And at certain point, so it happens that when you piss off somebody, he will attack you. But surely there is many times a discussion that comes before that. So it's kind of like these technologies now give us the power to make it more believable, but also to have different ways or see different things, how a conversation can be driven.
And I would like to point there is a different format when you can meet NPCs in the world, like that's different people or characters that you meet. But another side, you can own the NPC, and you can actually make it learn with you, make them advance as the AI and explore the world. So you can give different tasks to this NPC, and that's some sort of giving to the other direction, like, okay, in which form you can own this NPC and how you can use it basically in the different realities and that kind. But to give in the direction that we usually have the limitation in the gameplay. So we want the NPC to do specific role, because we want the player to have some specific experience. So we kind of want to the game developers know what to expect from the player. But if we give too much intelligence and NPC don't give any a limitation, we might end up losing the control. So player experience will not be that smooth as we wanted to build. So we have to be careful in the what exactly the NPC, how much freedom NPC can get in this case.
Depends on how much you allow them to do, right?
Yes, definitely.
Of course. You can constrain them. You can constrain them to walk only a certain distance and things like that, right? So, but definitely those are all good points, yeah. Because to make a story-driven game, you want the NPCs to be saying certain things. That's why we are distinguishing between what is an NPC that is story-driven and between what is an NPC that is just a filler. Because but again, we just feel that sometimes the situations, if you give them the boundaries which are good enough, will create more immersion for the player.
I think this is an interesting point to segue into companion NPCs, because I think a lot of our conversation was about kind of NPCs that fill the world around the player. But then, Johnny, you mentioned, owning your NPC. And I think for players for gamers who've played a lot of RPGs, companion NPCs, are a very important part of the experience, right? Both in terms of kind of your attachment to your, account, to your experience, and also in terms of kind of, bragging rights and kind of your strategy in battles. A lot of RPGs have really, cool companion characters. How do you see companions kind of evolving with kind of the new AI and Web3 stack?
I believe that Web3 stack works here as absolutely genius in the way. So let me try to get it from a little bit from technological level, for example. So in our case, in the Crossverse, we have this hypo, the NPC that like a robot or digital pet. So it's a form of NFT which sits on the blockchain. In Decentraland, we have a wrapper for it. So you can, it's a smart wearable. Basically, it's a piece of code. So that this is one of the metaverse that's so advanced to give it. So to have this functionality. So you taking this smart wearable and you say like, okay, this is my NFT, this is my NPC. You can upgrade this NFT that sits on a blockchain, so it's fine. And in Decentraland, I can see this NPC in this specific way, so it's my companion in there. So it's showing me it's advancing as the AI. But when I go to the another game, for example, Sandbox, when it would be advanced this way, where I can use my NPC there, and when the creators will have ability to, to have a wrappers around it, it would be like another shape, another form that we can build. So we can build different experience in there. So I can see that it might be another game that would be created where I can use my NPC as well. So I can go with it and, see it at least around me, at least to have a presence that I'm, exploring this world of the game with something else. So it gives the way of like how I can own something and go through the different worlds, and it becomes like forming different shapes. That's what amazed me so much, that I can really want to build this future and see this future.
Guys here have mentioned Skyrim. Skyrim was one of the games that started this company and stuff for many people. I myself have because I was studying how to do things for the game. I installed all these companion modes and into Skyrim. They have had many downloads. Some of them up to even 1 million downloads. And it was really fun because you could travel around with a girl, for example, and then eventually you could get married with the girl. But the thing is, it gave you some kind of a sense of fellowship, right? So that's a big thing, and that's a thing that we are working on. And I just feel that with this technology, all the relationships will be able to get so much deeper than they were before, and that you will really feel that something is happening between the two people. I mean, there have been a lot of people who have been playing BioWare games just because of the romance options, right? And those were so extremely basic. Usually, it was just a video. Same with The Witcher, right? So people are definitely looking for this kind of fun to have, and having deep like this is just going to bring it so much more to the real stuff.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to talk about Decimated and what we're doing for the companion apps, and obviously because we have the Web3 component in our game as well. Although Decimated is going to be predominantly player driven, there is going to be a lot of NPCs that will be enemies, some of which will be friendly. But in terms of the companion apps, I don't think, certainly not for alpha, maybe for beta or in the future, we might have companions that are humanoid companions, like a robot companion or maybe another humanoid companion, for example. But certainly in our alpha version, which comes out next year, we will have companion drones that you'll be able to send off to scavenge the environment or to heal other players or to attack other players. And this, I don't think that it's going to be a particularly complex AI system, because each of the different types of drones will have their function, and that's it. Depending on the type that the player buys will depend on its functionality. But in terms of how the Web3 stack affects the companion drones, of course, if the players want to have a scavenger drone that's going to go out and loot NPCs or other players' bodies to take some of their NFTs or take some of their virtual currency, then this is obviously the benefit that having those kind of companion drones would have. But of course, you need to make sure that people aren't going to exploit these systems to make it easy for them to just farm currency or farm items from the game just by using AI and automated systems. So these are the kind of problems that we're solving, and we discuss with our game developers about how we can balance it out so that people are not exploiting the system.
Yeah, I was just going to add the question of what a companion looks like, an NPC companion looks like, and how Web3 affects that is very front and center for our business as well. Because fuzzles are NFTs that you buy, and my vision for them really over the long term is something along the lines of what you see in the movie Her, where you have this, this being that you take with you and you can talk to really about anything, in addition to having some structured activities and games and other types of adventures that you can play with it. But the Web3 angle is, how does this thing evolve over time, and what's kind of stored publicly on blockchain? And if I think our intention perhaps is you grow so attached to this thing that you wouldn't ever want to sell it, but obviously people do, and there are a lot of people in the Web3 space for whom investment and making a return on those investments is a big deal. So that said, a lot of our players are talking to their fuzzles about very personal things, and there's some sensitivity around that data and how that's recorded and stored and whatnot. And we've had a lot of questions from our community about if I sell my fuzzle, what goes with it to that next person. So we're having to make really deliberate choices about what elements of fuzzle, as they change, as they evolve, are going to be permanent and are with that fuzzle forever, no matter how many times it changes hands, and which things are kind of reset upon transfer. So it's a really interesting challenge and problem to navigate that, and we're having some cool design discussions about what that looks like.
An NPC secret keeper. That's an interesting proposition. Stephen, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say, Braxton, I'm on your website right now. It looks really cool what you guys are developing.
Yeah, we love it, and certainly the way they look is a big part of the appeal too. It's like having a Pixar character in your hand when you're using the companion app. Nice, really nice work. Thank you.
I wanted to kind of follow forward with this train of thought. Besides AI, we also have AR and VR now. And so where before, let's say, a companion character was kind of locked down and bound to kind of the screen and the game world, now you can really kind of take that character with you. And we saw how powerful kind of the Pokemon Go experience was. Do you see, the companions kind of escaping just their bound gaming environment and going into the real world? And does that take the game environment with them?
I think that AR and VR are going to be, I think, more AR than VR itself, because VR still has a lot of room to grow still. I mean, I am a big VR fan, but the current technology just doesn't support extensive gameplay. But at the same time, if you think about it, like seeing the AI in front of you, speaking to you, making gestures, and you are watching a face of somebody that is telling you something, makes it that much more believable. One of the first companies in the field on world has been showing this actually on VR platforms, and they have had big success with this. I think it has a lot of believability to the product. As far as AR goes, I'm a big believer in that, because I think that, for example, finding Pokemon in the street, or somebody that will be talking to you at some point, is going to be a big fun. And this could be the mass market,
I missed the question, Ilya. Sorry, could you repeat what the question was originally?
No, I was wondering, how people see kind of NPCs escaping from the game environment using AR and VR, and what does that mean? Does it mean that they're escaping into the real world, or does it mean that the game world now kind of follows them into our physical world?
This sounds like a Black Mirror episode. Yeah, I think that if you're thinking like dystopian future, sure, but I think that there's always going to be limitations, even if AI is going to be augmented reality or in the VR world or whatever. And again, like this kind of it inspires me about companion apps that might be like a holographic version of Alexa or something like that, that might remind you about things or tell you what the weather's like, or even, offer you company, if you're in your cyberpunk apartment, decades in the future, and you've got this AI friend companion, kind of like in Blade Runner, right, where the giant hologram woman comes down and becomes Joe's girlfriend, right? That's kind of what I'm inspired to think about when you ask that kind of question. But I don't know, it's food for thought.
One of the early projects I saw in the NFT space was ZenFT's Bonsais, and they have a really cool AR feature where you can put your bonsai kind of anywhere in your environment and take a picture of it and share on social media or whatever. Obviously, that's a really simple application, but I like where that could go with NPCs and the idea that you're on an adventure in the real world, but also that kind of playing the game at the same time. And obviously, Pokemon Go is an early example of that as well. But it's kind of cool to have you. Oh, sorry for the dog barking. It's cool. It's cool to have your own NFT. I think that makes it a little bit more personal, kind of in the world with you.
That's probably an NPC.
Anyway, there's another thing that I was inspired by, actually. I just remembered. I don't know if you guys saw this many years ago in Star Trek Next Generation, but there was a hologram that was permanently inside the real world, but he hated the real people. He thought that they were disgusting because they had to eat food and had to go to the toilet and they had to sleep and stuff like that. And he started to get like a god complex because he was like a holographic AI. And I always thought that was a really inspirational and really dark and dystopian kind of story. So it's like that's the kind of like extremes that things could go to if artificial intelligence gets so smart that it starts to have a disdain for its creator. I don't know. I think that's our biggest fear, isn't it?
It is inevitable, and at the same time, it's really funny because I had somehow somewhere in the European Commission, or I don't know who that actually was, but somebody from EU called me to ask me a few things about AI safety. So that's something that's definitely going to be the theme. But because of its non-deterministic nature, I am just intrigued how people are going to be doing and working on this AI safety.
The lore behind Decimated is really kind of what we're talking about right now, because Decimated is set 160 years in the future after humans have made a mess of planet Earth, and then AI has become self-aware and realized what damage humanity has caused to the planet. And so it just by default takes over because it's this omnipotent, all-seeing, super intelligent computer. Of course, this starts a revolt against it because the humans don't want to be controlled by the AI. And then the AI ends up with this entire cyborg police force to police the entire area, which obviously doesn't end well. And that's essentially what Decimated is all about. So talking about AI and NPCs and stuff like that, for us, it's really, really interesting because that's what we basically build our whole game on, so.
It's interesting that we always seem to go towards kind of the dystopian future. Nobody believes that AI will lead us to a utopian future anymore, even though all of the dystopian movies start with us being in a believable utopia, right? Like we all go instantly, like we should start coding in like, don't harm John Connor into every piece of code now. But I am curious kind of on the other side of this, especially in Web3 where play to earn became such a big thing. Bots became kind of a huge problem, and farming as a behavioral activity became a huge problem, which kind of put into question the premise and the survivability of all single player games. Do smart NPCs solve that? Can you create kind of an exciting and challenging experience for single player, which used to be a lot of fun, like a lot of older games were really engaging single player experiences? Do smart NPCs fix that? And can you combat bots and farming with smart NPCs?
Yeah, this is a variation of another type of question that I've had in AMAs, and I always think that in the future there's going to be a choice. Some people ask if Web3 games, play to earn games, that kind of thing, are going to replace the traditional Web2 type of games, which I don't believe is going to be the case. I think you're always going to have a choice between playing an 8-hour single player story campaign that the programmers have and the developers have decided on absolutely every single aspect of the game, and you're playing it like you're reading a book, but you're playing an interactive story. You're always going to have those types of games. And then, of course, you're always going to have premium games where you pay $40, $50, $60, and then you can download additional content after you've played the main campaign, for example. Yeah, I might have some more thoughts on this topic.
I honestly think that are we talking about arcade games, or are we talking about something like Counter-Strike? Because that's a big difference, right? So, like, I don't think it's fun for people to play against bots that are on the best machine learning level and knowing everything. You know, it might become some kind of a sport in itself. Now, how do I see like characters that are just going to be maybe speaking to you or whatever that you meet in a game, which is very straightforward. Unless the game has some sandbox aspect to it, I just don't see it there. Yeah, that's my thinking.
I think it's always easier to put the limitation on the on the technology level rather than train another AI to fight the bots and find them. So there's a matter of like technology effort into it in the in the game environment itself.
Interesting. There, part of my curiosity comes from, I play a little bit of chess, right? And, if you play chess, you've probably seen how, eventually AI started to overtake human players. And right now, there's quite a bit of challenge around, how do you play a tournament and make sure that, the other person isn't cheating or getting, a bit of help here and there. And so will that, it's interesting, will that permeate other aspects of gaming? We've seen that, even, around poker, right? Wherever there's a finite number of choices, there are machines that, at first can help us make those choices and then can kind of overtake our ability to make those choices. And so, is it conceivable then that, a person can play a game surrounded entirely by NPCs and not be able to tell the difference that they're playing with humans or they're playing with, computer generated characters?
I do think that that's possible, and as I mentioned earlier on, Rockstar have patented their new NPC system, which we'll probably see in Grand Theft Auto 6, which is probably going to be indistinguishable from other players. But it's a really, really difficult thing to implement. What's really easy to implement is NPCs that will just see the player and then attack the player. What's really difficult is for the AI to navigate the environment the way that a player would. And often you can easily tell the difference between an AI and a normal player just by watching them from afar. If they're just standing there static, waiting for a player to arrive, then they're obviously an NPC. But if they're running around and going into buildings and searching and then coming out and looking around and then stopping and whatever, you can tell that it's a human player. But I do think that as the technology advances, if the developers want to have like no distinction between the NPCs and the real players, I think that this is already possible. I think that companies like EA Dice are already doing this with games like Battlefield. There's a lot of bots that are in those games to populate servers that don't have as many players, or maybe when there's like less players playing certain servers, they populate those servers with NPCs. So that the players don't get bored and feel like, well, there's no other players playing this game. They're always going to have that illusion that there's other players playing. But then there's videos on YouTube that where players can spot that they are actually NPCs, and then they try and make EA look bad, for example. But I think that the developers are always going to be able to control the levers in the behind the scenes. As game developers, you always have to do this because you're going to be changing the game and balancing the game and balancing the NPCs and how they operate, balancing their level of difficulty, their level of intelligence, based on how the players play the game and how they respond to the game. If the game is too difficult, or if the NPCs are too aggressive or too smart for the players, they're going to stop playing the game, and they're going to get upset because it's too difficult and it's no fun. So I always think the developers are going to have the control at the end of the day.
It was interesting that you brought up the example of Battlefield, because my head just before that went immediately to Fortnite, which I'm not as much of a Battlefield player, but I have been casually interested in Fortnite over the last few years as that game has really been built out. And for other players amongst my social circle who play that, I think a lot of them have a lot of difficulty discerning between which other characters that they're facing off against are bots and which are real people. So I think about if you were to pair that, and I'm sure that technology is going to get the AI for actually kind of the actions within the game is going to become much more sophisticated over time with say like the voice technology and contextual awareness. That's something like the demos for that Google Assistant showcase a year or so ago. It could be a really amazing combination of you having AI players on your Fortnite team or on your Battlefield team who you can't necessarily, that you may think because you were randomly assigned to them are real people when they are actually bots. It doesn't feel like that maybe is that far away.
I think that one. Oh, sorry, Thomas. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, this is very far into the future, right? But it's going to become harder and harder to distinguish these bots from players, and then even after some time, it's not going to take many years. They are going to be able to even emulate the human voice, and they are going to be if they are going to be already so smart that they will be able to outsmart all the tests. Then will the people be able to find out? I think that there is going to be something like a DNA sign-in or something like this, because it's really not going to be. You are not going to be able to distinguish it.
I think I was going to say one of the biggest risks and challenges with developing games is, especially when you open up the floodgates and you have millions of players playing your game, is you get a lot of hackers and cheaters who will inject scripts and try and intercept the network packets that are going between the client and the server. And in a lot of cases, they might run scripts or bots or AI, for example, in order to help them defeat other players and get an advantage over other players. So, of course, there's anti-cheat systems that you can use to prevent people from injecting code into their client, for example. But I think that developers also need to think about ways to prevent people from running scripts like that or artificial intelligence to play the game for them by many other means. Checking to see if the email address that's been registered on the account is less than a week old, for example. Checking to see if they've got any other social media accounts associated with that, just by using API calls, just to give the new user account a credit score what would you say, like a fraud score, a reliability score. So you can automatically prevent people from creating new accounts if they have a low or a high risk score, and you think that they're going to actually just hack the game and try and run bots. So this is a big thing. It's a big problem that a lot of games have. I know that Fortnite and PUBG they're deleting like hundreds of thousands of new accounts every single day from cheaters and hackers. So it's a big problem, and I think that, as we were talking before about AI being used, and we always think about the dystopian end result, the thing is that there's a lot of people out there that are going to use this type of technology for nefarious purposes. So you also need to have measures in place to prevent people from being able to do that.
I would like to
projects are putting together whitelists for various events and stuff. The requirements have gotten more and more stringent over time. So what's your Discord account? What's your Twitter account? And then the more high profile projects, like Moonbirds, for example, they actually went and looked at these. I think they had a combination of manual review and programmatic review to really try to parse out which applications were bots and which were real people.
I would like to point on it from a little bit different direction, like from the maybe philosophical way of what we think, what the game is. So when Ilya, when you mentioned chess, it's mostly about the competition. So it's the target is winning. So with the poker, you're also winning. You want to achieve the point of winning. But if we look at for example, one of the good book by Victor Shamas, The Way of Play. So we actually enjoy as the humans the way when we interact with a game, there is the purpose, when there is no end result. So you actually enjoy playing just the process itself. So when we end up in the environment when you just you don't have a final destination, there will be a lot of AIs that like companions or other characters that you will just enjoy spend time with it, and that would be the way as you see a game itself. So I would put it in different buckets. This type of game that we have games.
I think we're coming up to the top of the hour, and the way I like to end these sessions is to kind of go around and have all of the speakers say one thing they're super excited about. I think given the topic, there's lots to be excited about, but if you can kind of single out one thing let's say for the foreseeable future, right, for the next few months, that would be great. And I'll go around the same way when we got started. So Stephen, one thing you're excited about.
Oh, I was going to say two things. So I'm looking forward to the release of the Decimated Alpha in 2023, and also the next bull run.
I think a lot of people, not financial advice, but I think a lot of people are looking forward to that, hoping for that.
Yeah, we're planning to time some of our launches in time for market hype.
Braxton, what about you?
Ditto on the bull run. That would be great because things have been a little depressing lately. In the context of NPCs, I think what I'm most excited about, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is that idea of a virtual companion. So whether that's something you can take with you, like you see in the movie Her, or if it's a character that you interact with in maybe a more traditional gaming setting over a long-term single-player experience. I think both of those are just so exciting. I mean, for me these days, as a dad with two young kids and a busy job and other stuff going on in life, a lot of gaming for me is keeping in touch with other folks and playing with them and enjoying those experiences. But the time that I have doesn't necessarily align with the folks that with the time that other folks have. So single player experiences sometimes in that respect can be a little bit lacking, and I think AI can help fill some of that void within these NPC characters in those experiences.
Awesome. Johnny?
I following a Stable Diffusion last months pretty closely, and I'm so exciting the way it forms, like how the community reacts, how many we have possibilities for forming the metaverse itself, to forming the objects around it in real time. So it's a generated metaverse itself. So once you thinking or you can even say some of the words you want to see around, even walking with your companion, and the world can change around you. So it's like generative content that we can see, and I believe that we're gonna see the next level of metaverse itself, like how it's gonna change our reality. So I'm very excited the way it goes. That's the open source way. Love it so much.
Awesome. Daruk?
Well, Ilya, you mentioned short term, but my point is just more like a long term excitement on the AI space, because I believe AI is just as powerful as its database. So the larger database you have, your stronger your AI would be in identifying or reacting to certain feedbacks from the users. So considering how much data Meta have right now with Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, I believe they must have, that's my opinion, but they must have one of the largest databases in the world. So once they decide to integrate that data to other use cases of AI, it will be surprising for us, because even at this moment, it's surprising how their recommended ads can be surprisingly self-aware, and can surprise us in certain ways that even even on the things that we are not fully aware of, they can identify our preferences, our habits better than ourselves. So I believe once Meta implements all those data to certain aspect of AI, I think that will be the groundbreaking moments in the AI technology.
Awesome. Tomas?
Yeah, I'm excited about everything that that the guys said here on the space. I'm excited about, Musk released the robotic frame some time ago, and because I've been in this AI field for quite some time, people sometimes thought that I was crazy when I was telling them things, how things are going to progress, etc., etc. Now, with all of these advancements and with this wave, I finally am starting to believe that the AI has come to a point where we will get real breakthroughs, where the AI is actually going to be helping people rather than a nuisance, or rather than something that's just for crazy people, right? And I think that AI can really help humanity. That's in total everything that I believe. I do not really believe in the dystopian future, and that's what I'm excited about. Every single week we see new things. Every single week we see new papers, how to approach things, and it's just growing. And it's the cool future that I wanted to live in when I was a small kid.
Awesome. Well, that takes us to the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you, speakers, for sharing your thoughts. This was awesome. There's lots more to discuss here. I might put another conversation about this, maybe specifically about AI as well. So everybody, thank you so much. And as I mentioned, this is a weekly Spaces. So tune back in next week for another conversation. Everybody, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ilya. Thanks, everybody. All the best.
Thanks, Ilya. Cheers, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.